I would like to ask the Minister for Environment, Food and Agriculture whether his department is monitoring or considering action to control the population of the wild goats in Garff.
Call the Minister for Environment, Food and Agriculture, Mr. Butt.
Thank you, Mr. President. My department has been aware of the presence of wild goats in Garff for many years, as indeed most of us are. These goats are feral, a non-native species living in a wild state without human ownership or supervision. The control of feral goats is an emotive issue, and I'm aware there are both those who would support and those who would oppose controls. Currently, the department does not have any powers to control them, except in the specific circumstances of a notifiable disease outbreak. Although some members may remember that during the 2001 foot and mouth control period, the department was unable to gain support to cull the goats as a precautionary measure. With specific regard to wildlife conservation, feral goats have no protection under the Wildlife Act of 1990. Therefore, a landowner who has any issue with their presence on their land can control them on their land by humane means. Indeed, some landowners do shoot them to reduce the numbers on their land. In conclusion, I do not have evidence that the feral goat population currently poses a significant threat in terms of environmental impact, the island's livestock industry, or road safety. Should such evidence emerge, then I will reconsider the current policy. The department has many calls on its resources, and formally monitoring or controlling feral goats is not currently a priority.
Mrs. Caine, supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank the Minister for his answer. But I have a few queries, actually. In terms of the wild goats, there is a lot of affection for them, and they have been in that area for a long period of time. The issue, I think, at the moment is that they seem to be increasing. Certainly, I've heard of a householder who was terrorised by a goat and did contact a marksman. When the goat, a very aggressive territorial billy goat, was shot, it was found to be 23 stone and it was riddled with ticks. Now, is that a notifiable disease? Because I'm also hearing from farmers that they are getting many goats in with their stock. Sheep are developing mites that are driving them demented. What about care for the feral goats? Because some of the goats, I learn, have been shot, are in a terrible condition and must be suffering. So what is the department's policy on that? And also, in terms of a householder, how would the department advise them how to get somebody in to deal with the problem if they have a problem?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, ticks are an affliction on all wild animals, and something that they have to put up with. Farmers who have problems with goats mingling with their sheep are, as I said earlier, using any humane method, shooting is generally the accepted method, able to control those goats. So if they feel they are causing a problem with the cross contamination disease-wise, then that option is available to them. When it comes to householders and how they deal with problems, I'm sorry to hear about the rampant billy goat. There are a number of options. They can contact the department, and we may be able to put them in contact with someone who can carry out control methods. If there are welfare issues, the NSPCA will, I'm sure, involve themselves in the situation and help resolve it.
Mrs. Caine, supplementary.
Anecdotally, and certainly from my own observation, there seem to be many more goats currently than there have been previously. They used to be very elusive. We saw them once or twice a year. These days, we saw them every day in December, and this morning I saw 4 on the road. My neighbour shooed 24 off his land in my direction at the weekend. I would just...
I wonder why.
I'd like to ask the Minister, given that these goats, and some of them are very aggressive, and they're going into households which aren't particularly rural, but actually in Laxey village as well, is there any record kept of how many are culled? I believe that some goats are left for the fallen stock collection service that the department runs. Does the department monitor how many goats have been culled in recent months or years?
Minister.
Thank you. Anecdotally, I think you are correct. The wild goat population has increased. However, I go back to my original answer, in as much that landowners are able to control the goats, and if they feel the goats are an addition to their livestock and don't want to control them, then that is their decision. When they stray into gardens, etc., it's obviously difficult for some people, but at the end of the day, they are feral animals, and this is what they do, and maybe shooing them in another direction is the answer in that respect. Goats, wallabies, cats, chickens, cockerels, geese, there are a lot of feral animals that cause problems on the island, and we get a lot of complaints. And it is a resource situation, whether we have the resource to control. There are people, as I said earlier, who are able to control. More recently, the Animal Welfare Forum has looked at this subject, and there are some recommendations in that respect. And as I said earlier, I am willing to reconsider it if there is a significant problem in the future.
Final supplementary, Mrs. Caine.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I also asked the Minister whether there was any record kept of the number of goats that were culled.
Thank you. I apologise. I forgot that in my reply. No, there is currently no record.